LLC stands for Living Learning Community. A living learning community is a residential community that is focused on a specific major or interest. Major-focused LLCs are built around a specific major or area of study. Bulls Business, Education, Honors, and Nursing Public Health are just a few that you can find around campus. Interest-focused LLCs are related to an interest or identity. These include ROTC and Stonewall Suites. To learn about all the LLCs USF has to offer, visit usf.edu/housing. Click Residential Learning, and then Living Learning Communities. It's very common for LLC residents to spend a lot of time together and continue the friendships they make even after leaving. Residents often take the same classes, help each other with homework, and attend events together. Movie nights, game nights, and birthday parties are common for residents, whether they're planned by the RA or the students themselves. These communities give students a chance to work together frequently, which helps build both personal and professional connections. While living in a living learning community, residents will have many opportunities to connect with faculty and staff right inside the residence hall. You can choose a living learning community that complements your major or is focused on a topic you're passionate about. Regardless, you can expect a welcoming community to enrich your time at USF. After all, there's no better way to learn something than to live it. Get ready to live the Bulls life.
Coming to you from the beautiful University of South Florida campus in Tampa, it's USF Housing Live!
Welcome to the Season 8 premiere of USF Housing Live. I'm your host, Julia O'Hara, with Housing and Residential Education at the beautiful University of South Florida in Tampa. We have an exciting season planned to help you prepare for college. Throughout this season, we'll be talking about the on-campus experience, academic success, dining, financial aid, and so much more. So be sure to join us on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern to hear from campus experts and have your questions answered live on the show. So to kick off this season of Housing Live, we'll be talking all about the residential experience at USF. And tonight we're joined by Assistant Vice President of USF Housing and Residential Education, Anna Hernandez, and later on in the show, David Kloiber, the Associate Director for Operations and Outreach, will be joining us. So be sure to drop your questions in the comments wherever you're watching, and we'll respond to as many as we can throughout the show tonight. So welcome, Anna. Thank you so much for spending the evening with us. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. And yourself?
I'm great. Just excited to get this season going.
Sounds good. I'm very excited, and I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. So let's begin tonight's discussion on the topic of availability on campus. Can you talk to me about the options available to students for the fall-spring 22-23 term?
Sure. As you know, our motto is to create the best place to live, best place to work, best place to learn. And we want people to embrace living the Bulls life. And that seems to have taken hold. So we are experiencing extremely high demand from both our returning students as well as new students wanting to be on campus. And we're really excited about that. So I mention that because there is some urgency, I would say, not a panic, but some urgency with regard to students and their families making decisions as to where it is that they would like to live next year. The first step, if living on campus is a priority, is to make sure that they have taken care of all of the steps to be eligible to select a space. That includes applying, obviously, in the housing portal, making the housing application payment, submitting their immunization, as well as registering for orientation. And that would make the students eligible to select. And when I say that, I want to make that distinction because on some campuses, once students apply for housing, then the university is the one that puts them in a bed. That's not how we do it here at USF. We want to give our students the broadest access to select the space that is the right for them. So you'll see through the housing portal that you can drill down to the specific building or room type or floor, or I want to live in the corner or at the end of the hallway or near the bathroom or away from the bathroom, elevators, etc. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that selecting a room is the next step once you're ready to be assigned. The other piece that I want to make sure that all of our students understand is the student housing agreement, and making sure that they read through all of the details with regard to that, because entering into a student housing agreement is similar to entering into a lease off campus. There are some differences, but it is a legal obligation. And so we want to make sure that if it is that students have the priority that they want to live on campus, then making sure that they secure a room is really important. But if it is that they only want to live on campus, if it is that they can be in a single, for example, then they should refrain from selecting a room with the hopes that they may be able to change that, because once they select the room, then the students are obligated for the terms of the student housing agreement, which are all available online. And I would encourage students and families to read through that before they get to that stage. So select a room that you would be happy to stay in for the full academic year. I think that one of the things that is important as we're talking about demand, which seems early because this is our first Housing Live episode, is that we actually anticipate that we're probably going to be closing the housing application and not accepting any new applications sometime during the month of May. I don't know when it is, but we're going to keep an eye on how the number of applications relates to the number of available beds that we have on campus. And so we also anticipate that we will be implementing a standby list process for those who are eligible to select but haven't selected if it is that our spaces become very limited. Now, details about the standby list will be emailed to everybody that's ready to select into their USF email address. So I would say that students should certainly keep an eye out for that. We also have implemented a website that is available this year that gives students a sense of what are the available spaces that are available for what we call general assignment, which is any student is eligible for those selection spaces, as well as our living learning communities. And so you can see where the demand is that we're experiencing in those areas. So we have 12 living learning communities. I certainly would encourage you to explore those options. We can talk a little bit about them later on in the show, as well as I know that there's a whole episode that is devoted to the benefits of the living learning communities. But that may be something that students want to consider as well. And finally, I would say with regard to the availability is just a reminder that we have housing on the Tampa campus as well as the St. Petersburg campus. And if it is that a student is interested, any USF student is eligible to live on any of the campuses, St. Petersburg and Tampa. And so they should take a look at what those spaces are and see what best fits their needs there. So that's what I would say. So high demand, and act quickly, but do your due diligence.
Great. And we are getting so many questions just from the first few minutes of the show. So thank you, everyone, for all of these great questions. We're going to get through as many of the most common asked questions as we can. Something that you touched on that I do want to bring up is the St. Pete topic. Someone is saying that they have classes on both campuses. And how do they know which campus is right for them? How do they go about making that decision?
So I would encourage them to reach out to the housing office. We can provide details, whether it be the St. Pete campus or the Tampa campus. But I think that the biggest difference would be the scale of the institution and the campus. So obviously, maybe not obviously, but I will share that the Tampa campus has a large student body. Over 30,000 students on the Tampa campus, whereas the St. Petersburg campus is much more small and intimate. Tampa is in the Tampa metropolitan area, and all of the access to the resources that are available in Tampa is wonderful there. St. Petersburg, it is right there on the bay and easy access to the beach, and so it really is a smaller beach community that is located in the downtown area. And so they're just different experiences. If somebody has the opportunity to do a campus tour so that they can see how it feels to them, that's probably the best guidance that I would offer. For those who aren't able to come to either of the campuses, I would say take a look at all of the resources that are available with regard to video tours and information that may be available on YouTube so that you can get a sense of what the campus communities look like. So certainly one is not better than the other. I think that they're just different kinds of communities, and students may be taking all of their classes online, and therefore it's less relevant with regard to the distance from the classroom. So I would encourage people to just explore all the options that are available.
Right, and both great options too, both campuses.
Absolutely. So. And I would say, just for those who are not familiar with the Tampa and St. Petersburg area, St. Petersburg is across the bridge from Tampa, right? So I have gone to St. Petersburg and St. Petersburg to Tampa regularly. I actually just went there yesterday. And it takes me about 45 minutes to drive from one to the other. Certainly, I would try to avoid, rush hour traffic. That is always going to add some distance to that commute. But I just want to make sure folks know that it's not, 3 hours away.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And something else you spoke about, Anna, before we get into more of the benefits of living on campus and what students can expect when they get here, you did mention that when you select a space, just to be confident that that's a space that they'll be comfortable with for the term. We do have a question from Donna asking, if you already secured a room, can you change it if something else that you prefer opens up? And if so, how do you go about changing it? And we can talk to Dave a little bit more about the details of how that process looks with a room change, but I did want to point out, based on what you said, that it is an option to do a room change. It's just if it's available or not is going to be the question.
That's correct. And I believe that, and Dave can give you the specific date, but I believe that option to change is available through June. There is I think it's the end of June that we don't allow the room switches because we need to sort of solidify what the communities are going to look like. But I do want to caution again that if it is that you select a room, let's say that you select a double room, but really you have your heart set on a single, I think it's fine to select a double room, but just understand if a single doesn't come available, then you'll be living in a double and vice versa. And so we want people to find their best community to help them be successful academically, socially, and being part of the community environment. But I just want to make sure that everybody understands that selecting a room or being placed in a room because you have applied for an LLC, a living learning community, that I want to make sure that everybody understands that is a contractual obligation.
Right. And we have a lot of questions about living learning communities. So let's jump into what those are a little bit more. And like you mentioned, next week, we'll be going into great detail about living learning communities because that's what our episode is about. So we don't have to get too much into the details here, but just for everyone watching that may not know what a living learning community is, would you provide a brief overview of that?
Absolutely. We are very fortunate to have excellent partners on the academic side of the house and the student success side of the house here at the university. And we offer 12 different living learning communities, and students and families can go to our website and they can read a lot of detail with regard to the specific options that are available. I'll provide a broad overview. We have engineering LLCs, business, education. We have 3 different ones in the student health area. We have honors college, provost scholars. We also have interest-based groups like ROTC and Stonewall Suites. And so I would encourage students to read about them, see if that is a niche community that seems to speak to them, and then if so, make sure that they apply so that they can be considered for those communities, because we do have space that is still available in those areas. But overall, the benefits of a living learning community are that it provides an opportunity to make connections with faculty, with advisors, with students who are sharing the same academic or personal interest, and really creates a small cohort. So as I had indicated, the Tampa campus is a very large campus. And so trying to make the Tampa campus a smaller community, being part of the residential community, because that's a subset, smaller community within that particular building, and then even a smaller community where you can make those personal connections in the living learning cohorts. Each living learning community offers a different programs, different elements, different benefits to that. Some of them can include field trips that you go to various businesses in the area. Some have dedicated advisors that have offices directly in the residence hall. So if you ever have a question about your major, which classes to take, if you are trying to make connections with faculty members that are in those particular colleges, the living learning communities help really make a very large institution smaller. St. Petersburg campus also has living learning programs that are a little bit different than the Tampa campus, but they again have that same goal, I think, which is to create that smaller cohort.
And you answered one of the questions right there. Someone was asking about living learning communities at St. Pete, if those are an option because they were placed at St. Pete. So another question that came in is, can you still apply for a living learning community? Yes, the applications are open. And a few questions about timeline. So I'm not sure, Anna, if you have this information. Dave may know just based on how much involvement he has in the day-to-day process of that. But how soon would a student find out if they've been accepted to an LLC, and when would they receive their assignment within the LLC?
So I will leave it to Dave to give you the specifics as to what he's seeing on a daily basis. But I will tell you that the process is that when a student applies, we are encouraging our partners to review those applications as soon as they come in. So just making sure that people are eligible, that they can place them. They then let us know that this person has been accepted into the living learning community. We check that on a regular basis throughout the week if we've gotten any of that information from our LLC partners. As soon as we have that confirmation, we would place the student in that space. I will say, just because we had talked about the obligation from selecting a room, is that most of the LLCs, you're not selecting a particular room, but by applying to be part of a living learning community, if it is that you are selected, you're automatically placed into that space, and it has the same contractual obligation. But I just wanted to make sure that, I started this by saying how many options that we have, and we want students to select their actual rooms. For a living learning community, because there is a separate application process, we actually do those assignments as it is that they're approved by the partners.
Correct. All right. Well, we're still getting a lot of great questions, and keep them coming. Sure. We're going to get through as many as we can. A lot of them are process related, so I'll save them for Dave. Okay. But I wanted to ask you, what type of support do residents have living on campus? For those that are planning on living here in the summer or in the fall, what can they expect as part of their campus community?
Sure, and community really is the key to that. We have a recognition that students select USF and select trying to live on campus so that they can be successful academically, in their career goals, or whatever personal goals that they have. And so we want to make sure that we provide the support that allows them to be their full self and as successful towards meeting their goals. I will share with you that one of the ways that we do that is with our partners in residential education is our approach to programming, for lack of a better word, is that we apply a residential curriculum. And so it sounds like a fancy word. Basically what it means is trying to make personal connections with our residents and acknowledge that different students need different things depending on where they are in their transition to the university. For example, first-year students that may be coming to campus, they may need to have support to find out where their classes are, to develop positive study habits, to create those connections with other students that are on campus. that would be compared to maybe towards the end of the academic year, or even if there's a junior or a senior that would be a resident on campus, they may need more information and support with internships or resume building or interviewing skills. And so the residential curriculum as a whole tries to meet people where they are and give them the support that they need through those personal connections, and intentional conversations is the terminology that we use. I want to also share that residential education has several signature programs that we do throughout the year. Whether that is our House Calls program, which is where we bring faculty and staff into the residence halls, specifically those that have a predominance of first-year students, so that we break down some of those barriers. So if a student didn't feel like, going to office hours with a faculty member, we want to bring the faculty into the residence halls, have them set up in the lounge, and just have a casual conversation with each other. We have our last lecture series. We have final reviews that are going on right now, where we sponsor faculty members, especially in some of the larger classes, to do final reviews to help students be successful in their upcoming finals, as you might imagine. And finally, there's so many, but finally, I do want to emphasize that we also have arrangements, agreements, partnerships with faculty members, whether they be faculty in residence, which are faculties and their families who actually live in the residence halls, or whether they're faculty fellows who are assigned to particular communities and come in and share their expertise, and or just are a resource for the residential community. So we really try to offer a variety of academic support as well as social support for students.
And you talked a lot about those events and the programs that are continuously being offered here on campus. So campus community and the benefits of that. So another big topic that we discuss a lot is the benefit of the safety measures that are set in place in our campus community. So can you talk a little bit about those measures that are in place to promote a safe environment on campus for residents?
Sure, and safety anywhere starts with the people, right? So safety starts with our community. There are benefits to being part of a community of scholars, to knowing your neighbors, knowing that you're going through the same experience. Believe it or not, residence halls are designed in a way that you should be able to have familiarity with the student population that is in the building within the first semester. That's sort of the scholarship around how we design residence halls. But just knowing who people are and whether it is they are a member of the community. So we try to avoid tailgating, which is just being polite and holding the door open for whoever's behind you. We try to discourage that behavior. One of the things from a mechanical standpoint or a physical attribute, we require card access swipes for residents to gain access to particular buildings in which they live. Only the residents in those buildings will have access. We have blue light phones that are located throughout campus. So if there is any kind of emergency and a student needs to immediately reach police for an on-site response, they can just go to a blue phone, and you should be able to see a blue phone from anywhere it is that you are on campus. We also take great pride in the relationships that we have with our university police, with our medical response unit, with our environmental health and safety teams that are available on campus, to make sure that we are providing an environment, a physical environment that allows students to feel comfortable and feel safe in their environment. So throughout the year, we also do things like health and safety checks, just to make sure that students who may be living on their own for the first time understand the impacts of behaviors, whether it be trash or whether we make sure that the smoke detectors are operating appropriately. And we have fire drills, and being in Florida, we also have a very robust hurricane protocol. Hopefully nobody will ever have to experience that, but I just want to share with students and their families that we're ready to support them in that way.
Great. And Anna, thank you so much for all of this information. We are getting some questions that I'm going to hand over to Dave. So we see your questions. We're going to be going through them a lot with Dave Kloiber, who's our next guest. But some questions have come in from those that may be joining us after we talked about availability a little bit. So
Sure.
just to summarize what we talked about in the beginning, when should we expect more rooms to be opening up as we move forward over the next couple of weeks for those that may be waiting on an additional or a room to be open that they're looking for specifically?
Sure. So let me talk a little bit about I'm going to call it inventory management, right? So we only have a certain number of beds that are available on campus, right? That has the capacity on campus. We have beds that are reserved for specific groups like our living learning communities. There is an opportunity for students to apply for those living learning communities, and we will do those assignments as they have been accepted to the program. If it is that we have living spaces that are available in living learning communities and we don't have any additional people that are applying for those living learning communities, then we will convert those beds to general assignment spaces. So spaces that are available for the general student body to select outside of the living learning community. So that is a process that will happen over the course of the next 6 weeks with regard to the placement for students in the various living learning communities. However, on a regular basis, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, is sometimes we have students that move from one bed to another bed, right? They are looking and they're finding a space. Sometimes, unfortunately, we have students that have decided that USF may not be the right fit for them, and they decided to go to another university, and they may cancel a bed that they have reserved. And so, for the next 6 weeks or so, it will be, I would say, it will be not a bulk amount of spaces that will be coming available, right? So there isn't this major release of spaces that we're holding on to. It really is going to be more, a bed here, a bed there, based on cancellations or people changing spaces. Probably towards the end of June is when we may see remaining spaces that could become available. However, we will be implementing our waitlist process before then, and so I would not wait. If it is that living on campus is your priority, I would not wait to select in June unless it is that you only want to live in a particular building or a particular room type. So it's a really difficult needle to thread in trying to figure out, all right, where am I going to live? When are those spaces going to be available? But as I had mentioned earlier in the show, we have developed a website where you can see what available spaces we have, whether they be in living learning communities or whether they be general assignment spaces. We have a breakdown as to whether they're male spaces or female spaces, and that is determined by whether the other half of the room has been selected by somebody of a particular gender. So that is not a live availability, but we try to update that at least twice a week. And so I would encourage students to either continue to look at that webpage, or students always have access to the housing portal that they can log into 24/7 as soon as they're ready to assign, if they just want to refresh and see what's available that day, and then make those selections.
Yeah, and I
Does
think
that
that's
help?
super. Yes, and I think that's super important what you just said too, with the ability to actually go into the housing portal and look at those live spaces, because we're getting some questions about, like, well, how do we know what's live at this very moment? Students that are ready to select can go in and see those spaces, and like you said, down to where the room is in the building, what side of the room, and all of that. So all of that is available to students through the housing portal.
Yes. I will say, though, because the spaces are so limited, that when they do their search, they should probably try to keep their search initially as broad as possible, so that they can
Just to see it
see,
all.
okay, I want to make sure, I want to see all of the singles that are on campus, right? So they can make that selection or that filter, and then they can see that so that they're not wasting a lot of their time. But if it is that they just want to say, I just want to, live on campus, give me whatever you've got, then you'll be able to see what the options are available and select what's right for you.
Great. And Anna, thank you so much for all of this information. You've been super helpful. We have lots of questions for Dave, so we'll let you go for this evening and then go to our quick commercial break so that we can chat with him. But again, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us tonight.
It is my pleasure, and I'm excited to welcome our new students to campus, whether it is that that's a summer arrival or whether that's a fall arrival. So we are ready for you, and can't be more pleased to have you live the Bulls life.
All right, thank you, Anna. And it's time for us to take a short break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more USF Housing Live right after this.
What I love about living on campus is the great sense of camaraderie that I feel within my living community, as well as access to everything, whether that be the Marshall Student Center, the bookstore, the dining hall, as well as my classes. I have less than a 10-minute walk from my classes, which is great. To future scholarship applicants, I would tell you to reflect on your living experience, what your living experience has done to you within the USF community, and how you are impacting your living community. To those who donated to the scholarship fund, I want to send a great thank you. You have sowed a great seed into my life, and I am definitely reaping the benefits. Thank you so much.
Now joining us, this is USF Housing Live, and we're here to help prepare you to live the Bulls life at USF. Ask us your questions in the comments and we will answer you live on the show. So our second guest this evening is the Associate Director for Operations and Outreach at USF Housing and Residential Education and a USF Housing Live regular, Dave Kloiber. Hey Dave, how are you?
Good, Julia. How are you today?
I'm great. We have lots of questions for you, so I hope you're ready to dive into it.
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. So we have our questions that I have prepared for you about the summer and fall semester, which I think is going to answer a lot of these questions that we have in front of us. So
Okay.
big question that we're getting is summer. What's the process for applying to live on campus for the summer and selecting a room for that? So let's talk about summer and fall semesters. What's the process of living on campus for the summer and fall?
All right. So the process is really the same, whether it's summer or fall, it's just a different application. And so with the exception of two very specific programs, if you're going to live on campus for the summer and for the fall spring, you'll be doing two different applications for housing. One for summer, one for fall and spring. Now, if you're in the ACE program or the SSS program, you can do a summer, fall, spring application. But that's not the majority of our students, so I'm really going to talk about the two applications. The process itself doesn't really change. You're going to go online to the housing portal, complete the housing application. You'll be billed a $50 application fee, typically the next business day in the morning, and you'll be able to see it on your account typically by 10 a.m., but certainly by 2 p.m. The following business day. Once you have that on there, you can pay your application fee. Now, you may have a admissions deposit that's already been paid, and so you've got a $200 credit maybe sitting on your account. In theory, that payment will pay the application fee, but if for some reason you don't attend, that admissions deposit will be what we call swept up by the admissions office, and then you'd owe that $50 again. So we do encourage all of our students, make sure you pay that $50 application fee for housing for each application fee that you put in, so that if for some reason you don't attend USF, which I know all of our viewers are going to be doing, they'll be attending USF this fall or summer summer. But you want to make sure that gets paid in addition to the $200 you've already put in, just to be on the safe side. So you've got your application done, your application fees hopefully been paid, and then you just need to verify that you've registered for orientation. Now, if you've registered for orientation, that means you've also paid your admissions deposit. And then finally, the fourth step is that your immunizations are submitted and they've been approved by Student Health Services.
So Dave, on that note, we are getting
yeah.
some questions in particular about the immunizations, and if someone needs support with their immunization requirements, is that a question for Student Health Services? They would contact them?
Yes, because they're the ones who actually approve or deny based on what your materials indicate. Now, for housing, there are 2 or 3 items that we're looking for. 2 if you're a domestic student, 3 if you're an international student. And so if you're a domestic student, we're looking at the hepatitis B vaccine and the meningitis vaccine. You either have to show proof of getting it or you can decline it for each of them. Now, we always encourage you, get your vaccines because it's only going to protect yourself. Or maybe you've already had the vaccine, but you don't have time to show proof because you want to get that room selected. You could log in and decline via the OASIS portal. But we always encourage you, please make sure you get your vaccines. And then if you're an international student, there is an additional tuberculosis test that we do ask that you provide proof for, and you'll be required to provide that proof by the time you arrive at campus.
And Dave, is there availability right now for Summer B on campus for if someone wanted to go in and select a room right now?
Yep, there is available. As of around 1:30 or 2 o'clock when I looked, there were beds for both men and women available. And as we see that beds run out, we will be adding more to the Summer B inventory. Now, you're not going to have as wide a variety as we have during the regular year because we don't have every building open. And so for Summer B right now, we have Beta Hall, Maple Hall A, Cypress C, which is typically for non-first years, but we will allow first years to live there during the summer. I think I saw a question earlier because, I was watching.
Oh, good. So
like everybody else. I think I saw a question earlier that said, is Cypress C okay or Cypress Apartments okay for first year students? For the summer, yes. For the fall, spring, no. And then we also have Holly A, B, C is also open for the summer. But if we need to open additional buildings on the north side of campus, we will do so.
And to clarify then, just for some of those that were asking, if you're planning on living on campus for Summer B and then for fall, spring, those require 2 separate housing applications, like you just mentioned.
Correct.
2 separate housing application fees, the $50 application fee, and 2 separate room selection processes. Some people are
Correct.
asking, is it an option to stay in the same room from summer to fall and not have to move out for that break? That would be called, I guess I'll let you answer that question, Dave.
Yeah. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. Is it likely? No. I'll just be honest. You heard the list of buildings that we offer for the summer. One of them isn't even available for our first year student. And so they definitely, if they're living there for the summer, they're definitely not going to be able to live there for fall. But it is possible. I would say maybe 20 to 25 students a year are able to do that, live in the same room for summer as they do for fall. Now, regardless of whether or not they live in the same room, they can actually request to stay on campus for that period between the end of summer and the beginning of fall. And we call that a break stay request. If a student would like to stay on campus for break stay, they can put in that request. It'll be available after opening, because we want to make sure that all of our requests are clearly available. And so I don't want to confuse our spring students by having that request available today. So once that request is submitted, the student will be able to move on Saturday, August 6th, from their summer assignment to their fall assignment. And then they can come and go as they please. If they want to stay for a few days, then, go home or go see something in Florida, maybe if they're not from Florida, and go away for a few days and then come back, they'll have that freedom. Their stuff will be in their room. They'll have their key. And that is an option available for them.
And the break stay rate, so this is something that the resident would be charged the nightly rate for their room that they're staying in.
Yep.
And those rates are on the website. And for clarification for break stay, so the summer to fall, that would be moving to a new room most likely for that break stay, but some people are asking about what winter break looks like, so if they have to move their items out or they just leave. So I'll let you clarify that as well.
Sure. Most of our buildings do not remain open for winter break. I believe right now our winter break buildings are looking to be Holly ABC, Horizon, Castor, and maybe Cypress, but we'll have more information on our website once that's finalized. But students do not need to take all their belongings home. We do encourage them, please take home your valuables and things that you'll need when you're away. So you're probably going to want your laptop because you want to watch things like Housing Live while you're away. You're probably going to want your medicine, your ID, your passport, your phone charger. You don't know how many people forget their phone charger. And then they call us up and say, oh, I need my charger, I forgot it. And then we have to help them get into the building because the buildings are locked. Their student won't have access over the break. We encourage them to take their small valuables, and if they for some reason felt like they needed to bring a 65-inch TV to school, they don't really need to take it home for the holiday unless they don't have a TV at home. But most of our students probably have more than one. So they could probably leave that big screen TV in their room and it'll be there when they return in the spring. Now that's of course if they're returning to the same room for spring, which 99.9% of our students do.
Thank you. And Anna and I talked a lot about availability as you were watching the show, so you saw that we had that discussion. We encouraged residents or future residents, students to go into the housing portal to see a live look at available beds at this moment. We are seeing some comments that there are no beds available or I don't see any beds when I go to select. So what view should they be making sure their housing portal is in room selection to make sure they see everything available? Do you have a suggestion on like if it's a filter issue or maybe it's by gender, an issue on that end?
It's gender. Right now, it's more than likely gender. More women go to college, I think, than men. At least that's the way it is here. At USF, it's about 45%, at least in housing. And our female students tend to book their housing earlier. And so last time I looked, I think when I ran the reports on Monday to help populate our new website, which is available through our banners on our homepage, I think I saw maybe 2 general assignment beds for women, and there were a number for men. So my suggestion is if you don't put any filters on when you go in to look, you'll see underneath the search box where you can put in filters how many beds are available for you at this time. Now that doesn't mean we don't have beds on campus. As I know that Anna had stated earlier, we have a number of beds that are currently being held for our special programs in our buildings, our learning communities, some special admissions programs. And as those beds are released, more beds will become available. So don't get discouraged yet. Those beds will be released, and when we do a release, especially when we do that final one with when the learning communities have said, okay, we've maxed out, this is as much as we're going to be able to pull in, take our beds. Our office will try to notify all students, not just the ones who haven't assigned themselves, but ones who have already assigned themselves, that we're going to be releasing beds. And we kind of call it release day. But it's kind of exciting. It's a little nerve-wracking sometimes. But for instance, last year we were releasing, I think we released about 150 beds in one day. And we try to do that in the afternoon, late in the afternoon, to allow our students who are still going to school to be actually able to come home and do that selection for themselves. And so we typically try to release those beds around 4 o'clock in order to allow our students that access.
And that's typically in June after we've determined what spaces living learning communities are going to be using. But it sounds like from my conversation with Anna was that we're going to be doing that more that sooner than later as we learn more and communicate with our LLC partners and figure out how many we're anticipating filling.
Right. So we've actually started those meetings already. Right. We've already had 2 meetings with our campus partners to say, how is your recruitment looking? Where do you, this is what we're seeing. Are you seeing the same thing? And can you start considering what beds you can start releasing now? So who knows, maybe we'll be able to release a floor in juniper or poplar.
Right.
Being
a lot of
1 or
LLCs
2
are
pods, there. Right. And so each pod is 34 people. So if we could release 1 or 2 pods, that could be 34 to 68 beds right there. And I can pretty much guess that they will go in a heartbeat.
So speaking of LLCs, because we're going to be talking for a full hour next week about living learning communities. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. I know we have a lot of questions about it, but for those that are watching tonight that want to know, how will students be notified once they have been moved from their original housing into their LLC space? So if they're living in they've selected a room right now and they have applied for a living learning community, what will the notification process be like when they're moved?
I believe my staff are sending them emails saying that they've been moved by the LLC, into the LLC from their current space, and I can double check on that. And if they're not, I can make sure they're doing that. But we actually will also, we understand that maybe an email hasn't been read yet because there are a lot of emails coming in, and maybe the partner hasn't been able to get to a particular person's email who maybe changed their mind because they have a room they want. And so we're trying to make that space that we move them from offline for a short period of time in order to confirm that change is what they want. And so we are trying to do that in most cases, but as we get further and further down, we're going to have to speed up that process.
And for honors, the process for that, is it still that if they're accepted, they select a space, or at this point, are they placed? What is it for honors LLC members?
So honors is a very large LLC. It's our largest LLC. They have 374 beds, almost an entire building. And so because they are so large, where our largest LLC besides them is, I think, 68 or 102 maybe. And so they actually do go in and do self-selection, what we call special population self-selection. And that's where they can select to go into the honors LLC, or if you're an ACE student, you can select to go into the ACE floor, or if you're an SSS student, you select the SSS floor.
And moving from LLCs a little bit more to the room swap process, a question from earlier, if my daughter secured a room and discovered that their roommate is not compatible at all, what are options there? Will more rooms open up, or what would your recommendation be for someone that's looking to make a change?
First, it's really examine why you're not compatible. if you're basing your entire opinion on what they have on social media, you need to talk to your roommate. You need to go into the my roommate, suite mates, my assignment roommate, suite mate information on the portal. Get their email address, reach out to them, and say, hey, can we connect on the phone? Can we connect on FaceTime? Whatever the other apps are out there that you can actually see each other and talk to each other. Because really, you may not be getting a real sense of who they are by looking at their social media. Some people are much different on social media than they are in real life, because maybe they're trying to look different to other people on social media. And so you really want to get to know them and meet them before you make that decision. Now, if you've done all that and it's still not working out, that's when the room change. There is what we call room change self-service. So you can go in, search for the room inventory, which obviously right now is fairly limited. And but as rooms open up, room change will open up, unless we're in the standby process, and that's a whole nother situation.
So I'm going to totally shift gears here, going from compatibility with roommates. Let's talk about the beds in Beta and Castor. I asked you about this earlier this week, but what I discovered, and I can answer this question now because I have confirmed it with facilities, those beds are going to be consistent with the rest of the on-campus inventory, which is XL, twins.
80-inch, yeah.
And then another question that's coming up from that is the bed raising process. So for those of you that don't know, you can raise your bed, you would have a request sent in to raise your bed to a certain level. You wouldn't want to do that on your own. And so you can do that ahead of time by going to our bed raising process page, and that'll be up on the move-in webpage that you can actually go in and make that request before you move in. So the move-in webpage usually comes live in the next month or so, but the summer move-in page is up right now. So
I was going to say summer is up, yeah.
Summer is live. If you go to our main webpage, I think that it's under announcements at the bottom. Right now we're still working through spring move out, but that will become on the main page, one of the main web banners here in the next couple of weeks once we make that turn. But all of the summer move-in information is up right now. So if you're moving in for the summer, you can actually submit a request to raise your bed right now before you move in, which we highly recommend because we get so many requests for that before a move-in. So if you get that request in, you get added to that list. But also to answer this question is no, if it's not high enough for you, you cannot use bed risers. That's not permitted. So I answered that question all by myself, Dave, about the bed raising.
It's you don't need me. I'm going to go home.
No,
oh, wait, I am home.
No, please, that's true. Please stay. We have lots more questions for you. So that answers a couple of the bed questions in Beta Castor. I know there was a little bit of confusion with that. So I talked a lot about LLCs, availability, room change. If you're just joining us and you missed a lot of the show tonight, after this is done in the next 10 minutes or so, the whole video will be up on Facebook and YouTube for you to view in its entirety with a lot of great information. But what I'd like to end the evening talking about is move-in. So a lot of questions about when is move-in, can I move in early, and what does this process look like? So let's hear first about when summer move-in is, which I know I just said that the webpage is up, that you can view that information right now and all of those dates because we have lots of different summer terms. Yep. And then fall as well. So can we go through that process a little bit and what that will look like?
Yeah, we definitely can. So summer, I'm going to talk about based on what program you're in. So our first program to move in for our new students would be the SSS program. And that one, they'll be moving in on Father's Day, which is June 19th. That's a Sunday. And they'll be going through orientation and a few other pre-program workshops prior to them starting classes on the 27th of June. The next group to move in would be our Summer B residents. They would move in beginning on Friday the 24th. Now, some of you may have an orientation that is on the 23rd, 22nd, 23rd. And so you would be able to request to move in, I believe, on as early as 22nd if you wanted to do an early arrival. Now, whenever you do an early arrival, you will be expected to pay the nightly fee for the extra nights that you're here. And then the final two programs that move in for summer would be on Wednesday, July 6th, which is our Bulls Business program and our Academic Cultural Enrichment, or ACE program. And they move in on, like I said, July 6th, and their classes will, all of our programs end on August 6th, which is a Saturday.
And before we get into fall, is there early arrival available for summer? For summer
that
B?
form will be up shortly for Summer B. I don't think it's up yet.
But it will be an option for students that might want to. Okay.
Correct.
So if for someone asking, how can I move in early for both summer and for fall, there is a form that will be up on the housing portal called the early arrival form. And then you pay the nightly rate of your bed space for
Correct.
the nights that you're staying.
Right.
And so let's talk about.
Now, we didn't talk about fall.
But yeah, let's talk about fall.
Because, that's the exciting one.
That's a big one.
So fall move-in begins on Thursday the 18th. I know Thursday sounds like a difficult day, but we want to try and have our students here for a few days in order to get themselves set up, get acclimated. They're moving in for what is basically a 16-week period, and so unlike summer when it's only about 6 weeks, now you're looking at 16 weeks. You may have multiple wardrobes because you're going to go through different seasons. I know seasons don't vary much here in Florida, but they do vary a little bit. I see my Floridian friends wearing their parkas when it gets cold out, but I'm from the north, and so I'm just like,
that's me.
It's beautiful out.
I'll be wearing my winter coat and my
That's
boots
right.
for the 1 week that it drops below 50, maybe. Gets a little cold here.
That sounds like a beautiful day to me. But you can request to arrive as early as Sunday the 14th for early arrival.
Right, and some groups are automatically it's included an early arrival, correct?
Nope.
Okay, maybe
Nope,
I'm just thinking of Bull Hall. That would be an option for a Bull Hauler that a Bull Hall volunteer will be able to arrive
I was going to
early.
bring that up because I was just working on that application this evening
Love
while
to
the
hear
show
it.
was going on. Now, obviously, you know all about Bull Hall because it's in your realm of control. But the Bull Hall program is a wonderful program that we've been doing here at USF for years and years. And we're actually going back to our original format, I believe, this year, which is really exciting. Those students who would like to move in early and get Tuesday and Wednesday nights paid for just by volunteering, I believe just on one day on Thursday, and you'll be helping people actually physically move into the buildings. Now, unfortunately, we don't have Bull Hall for all the days of move-in, really just for what we call grand opening, which is Thursday the 18th. But it is a great opportunity to get onto campus early, to meet people, and to really start on a really great foot of feeling really good about yourself for helping all your fellow students move in.
Exactly. You move in early, and you get to, we're planning some sort of event that's involved in that. Once they move in on Tuesday, potentially an event on Wednesday, and then move in on Thursday, you support either a morning or an afternoon shift. And for those asking the specific time for move-in for fall, we're looking at a 9 to 5 type of move-in arrival schedule, but we're not doing time slots as we had done in the past during COVID. We're looking at a morning or an afternoon slot just so that we have an understanding of who's coming when. Is that correct, Dave?
So,
okay.
Yeah, we will have a move-in day and time indicator. So if you're doing the early arrival request, it'll be part of that form. And if you're going to be arriving on or after the 18th, then it'll be a different form where you'll indicate, are you going to arrive in the morning or the afternoon? And that's just so we can make sure we have enough staff on hand to try and make your arrival as smooth as possible.
Exactly. Great. Okay. So going through my move-in questions. Let's see. Is there anything else, Dave, that we want to talk about related to move-in or early arrivals? I know we said that we're going to be looking at.
There are. We do encourage you to check our move-in website for lists of things you should consider bringing and not bringing.
Mm-hmm.
That's always a good idea. And also, if you're thinking, oh, I live very far away, let me ship things to the campus, please don't have them arrive until you do. So if you can try to time it so that package arrives when you're here at USF, that would be best, because I can tell you right now, we probably get about 30,000 packages in the first 2 weeks. And I can tell you our mail rooms are not that big. And so for our students who are looking to ship belongings here or to order them online and have them delivered, try to make sure that that delivery time coincides with your arrival or after your arrival. That way you can get to the mailroom, pick up your items quickly, and then really just save space for everybody to have their items shipped.
It's a busy time for our mail centers, for sure.
It is a very busy time. And then, you don't have to bring it all, especially if you're someone who lives, a few hours away. There's probably going to be opportunities for you to go home, and, Thanksgiving isn't all that far off once you arrive. It's only a couple of months. And so maybe you'll be going home then, only if you're really living far, far away, like other states or other countries. Would you really want to consider trying to bring as much as you can in that first time you arrive on campus?
And we're going to be providing all of this information on our website via email. We'll have live chats just about move-in as we get closer to that, because I know that there's lots of questions surrounding that process. But as for next week, so we have you back on the show again next week, Dave, because we're going to be talking all about living learning communities. So we'll spend the first part of the show talking about what living learning communities are, a little bit more about the application process, or the living process and what the community looks like. And then we're going to get into the details of the application process and any operational questions for you at the end of the show. And then maybe some other housing questions too.
Yeah, I think we've already received almost 600 LLC applications already throughout the, I think, 11 or 12 programs that we have now. That's
great. And a question, and that brings up another question that I've been seeing here in the chat is, do any of them are we full in any of them right now? Or are we not accepting LLC applications in any programs?
Last time I checked, none of our programs were full yet.
Okay.
So if you're someone, I believe Anna mentioned this earlier, but if you're someone who's really anxious about getting a room, LLCs have room. So if you qualify, consider applying. And, it's more than just a room. It's a great opportunity, especially if you're able to fit into one of those LLCs that has a career-minded interest, like the engineering LLC or the Women R or ROTC or, many of them. It's going to give you hopefully that start in the field. So you can learn about it as early as possible. Because I can tell you that my college experience, I started out as an engineering major. I ended up as a history major. Engineering was history for me. And it was because I actually got involved with working with engineers, and I found out it wasn't what I wanted. And so I was lucky enough to get that exposure early on. And so I made that decision to change my major and not end up getting a major which put me into a career that maybe I would never want to be in. And so the LLCs will give you that opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great point.
But because they're going to hook you up with, if it's business, they're going to introduce you to business leaders in the Tampa Bay area and in Florida. And, some of those introductions may lead to an internship later on in your college career. And internships are crucial to get that first job. And so that's what the LLCs can do for you. And so if you're on the fence about an LLC, watch the videos that I know that you and your team have produced about the LLCs, and learn a little bit more about it, ask the questions, and it's not even a full year commitment. If after the first semester it doesn't work out, you can see if maybe you want to do a room change out of the LLC. But I think after your first semester, you're going to say, how did I ever think about not doing this?
Right.
And so I would encourage everybody, if it's something that you can fit into, whether it's Rising Health Professional or any of the ones out there, give it a good long look, because not only is it going to get you a room when we don't have one for you to select at the moment, but it will give you a leg up in your career and hopefully your time here at college.
Absolutely. And Dave, I know we're over time, but I'm just going to ask you one more question from the list that we have here. One topic that I did not get into, because we are going to have a whole episode about this as well. But for those that are asking tonight, how can you and how do you change your meal plan? It's a big topic tonight in the comments.
Sure. Well, you change your meal plan when you're here for orientation. You can go to the meal plan office and you can speak to them about changing your meal plan. What's important to know is that for a first-year student, you have to have one of the 3 top-tier programs, meal plans. Either the unlimited plan, where all you care to eat, the NE15, or I think it's a Bull Block 175. And so you can go into the dining office and actually talk to them about changing your plan.
Great.
That's one thing we don't have available online.
Okay. All right. And so we want to thank everybody so much for joining us tonight and asking all of these great questions. We had great engagement. We got through as many as we could in the hour program that we do have tonight. But Dave, your team works hard all day, Monday through Friday, to answer these questions. So if somebody has an outstanding question that they'd like to get a hold of your staff to ask, how do they go about, and I'll say it in my outro too, but how would they go about contacting you
Sure.
with any additional questions?
They can always send an email to housing@usf.edu, or they can call up our office at 813-974-0001. And our call-in hours are from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And if you're on campus, feel free to stop in. Our office is open, and we're located on the 2nd floor of the Argos Center, right above Argos Exchange, which is one of our dining facilities.
Great. All right. Well, thank you again, Dave, for taking the time to chat. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anytime.
All right.
See you next week, actually.
We'll see you next week. Yeah. All right. So thank you again to Dave for answering all of our questions and the questions from the audience. And if you have additional questions about living on campus at USF, like we said, you can reach our office by email at housing@usf.edu or by phone at 813-974-0001. And be sure to join us for our next episode of Housing Live next Wednesday, May 4th at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll be talking all about living learning communities at USF. You can watch on our Facebook or YouTube page, the USF Class of 2026 Facebook group, or the USF Parent and Family Engagement Facebook page. USF Housing Live is produced by Housing and Residential Education at the University of South Florida in Tampa. Our motto is best place to live, best place to work, and best place to learn. Thank you to tonight's guests, Anna Hernandez and Dave Kloiber, for joining me this evening. Thank you to our production crew, to you, our viewers, and of course, there's always just one last thing. Go Bulls. Good night, everyone.